Welcome back to the channel. It's Onika again. I promised you guys a full breakdown of why consent is a myth. The episode with Rafamir is one that works kind of a prelude to what happened. That's Eye of the Storm episode 3. And in that episode, we looked at the allegations. We looked at the consent form that's circling around La Liga players. That is, because of cases like Rafamir, La Liga players designed a form that people who they're going to have sex with, the girls, have to sign. They tick all the boxes for the type of penetration they're going to do and all those kinds of things, kind of activities, intimate activities that they're going to participate in. And we saw in that case that the industry response, let's say the media response, the establishment response, is that the consent form has no weight, it's of no value, it does nothing, it's a waste of time. And it's not in a way of talking about like black pill, like the futility of what it is, but they're like, nah, you can't just have a girl sign something and then that means that she cannot withdraw the consent after. And that's the point. The point of consent is, and has always been, to give women power, because consent doesn't work in an intimate relationship. It works only in the courtroom, when the court has decided that the woman is in charge. Whatever the case may be, in the case of sexual assault or rape, the woman's word weighs more than yours. That's one reality that young men have to go through. That is, whether you are a regular Joe, we'll look at regular Joes, they will look at celebrities and influencers. And of course, we have footballers here who are also celebrities. So it is very important to understand from day one that consent is a myth. We are all going to prison. We just haven't been reported yet. Dictionary definition: consent is a voluntary agreement of approval of what is done or proposed by another. What is done or proposed by another. Now, as grown men and adults, and also please like and subscribe. Thank you very much for the support. Look at this. We're talking about consent in a general term, and Wikipedia says consent on one occasion doesn't mean consent has been given for future sexual activity. Consent has been given and withdrawn at any point. They put that in big bold letters, regardless of the nature of the relationship. There we go. At any point. At any point means before, during, or after. And we're going to see what happens, how that works. We're going to see the case of XQC, who had a relationship, an intimate relationship with some streamer or whatever. We do not care to mention her name. They have a relationship for a few months, and after the relationship, she takes him to court. Your ex-girlfriend is taking you to court and alleged sexual assault and rape for sexual activities you conducted during the relationship. Once again, captured media attention. Felix disclosed new developments in the contentious split. Now, contentious split. We only heard the phrase contentious split in the context of a divorce. But nowadays, now that people are not getting married, an allegation is the same thing as a divorce. Shout out to Coach Greg Adams. He's the person who said this. He says allegations are the new divorce. There are many examples of this. Let's she's suing for his past, present, and future earnings. Anyways, suing him again in California. There's something called forum shopping, right? Which shows you that this girl, she's forum shopping, she sued here, but now she goes to California where the laws are a little bit communist, and consent is a communist, feminist, and homosexual doctrine. I'll prove that in this case. Just watch. Domestic violence. So she's alleging domestic violence. So she's not even asking for damages, she's asking for a settlement. That's how you know they're all jokes. They're all designed to destroy men. The person, as I said, I will never mention her name, has filed a new lawsuit bringing forward claims of domestic violence, alleging that he pushed her face into his shoulder, that's called a hug, which led police to response and emergency protective order. The suit also revisits a previous sexual battery claim from Texas and accuses XQC of inciting harassment from his fan base. Sexual battery is the same thing as sexual assault, is the same thing as rape, is the same thing as sexual harassment. These four terms and all other terms like it, even domestic violence up here, even domestic violence is the same thing. Violent incidents. If a woman is alleging a violent incident against you, it's always going to be sexual, because that is how we view women. That's how society views women. There's no getting away from that. All these words are used interchangeably because women don't have a good enough claim, so they use different terms: sexual battery, sexual assault, sexual harassment, rape, all those things. They all mean the same thing. especially when it appears in a headline, it actually kind of expands the scope. The reason why the scope is expanding is because
Like and subscribe.
consent and rape, they're intertwined, and the world is becoming immune to cries of rape. Women have cried grape, or sorry, not grape. They've cried wolf for so long, following the Me Too movement, that now they have to expand their horizon on this thing. So very good. This is the quintessential rape case because Harvey Weinstein is currently in prison. So let's get that understood. Harvey Weinstein is in prison for rape. Let's see what they're saying rape is. Harvey Weinstein shares emails from an accuser inviting him on dates after the alleged assault and claims she told her friend the sex was consensual in his latest bid to get the charges dismissed. So he submitted a letter to the judge looking to get 3 of the charges in the sexual assault case dismissed. He also argues that the victim, alleged, must have talked about Weinstein in glowing terms, as the 2013 email reveals her friend told Weinstein she adores you. On July 9, 2014, the accuser had an email exchange with Weinstein organizing dinner plans. There is no one I would enjoy catching up with that understands me quite like you. This is what a so-called rape victim, quote unquote, sexual assault victim, is saying to her abuser, alleged. So these are the facts that women are bringing to court, and these are the facts that are getting people accused of rape, convicted of rape. An accusation of rape is the same thing as a conviction for rape. I'm sure everyone understands this. So that's why it's a myth. That's why it's a hoax. If as a black person, for example, if you call a white person a racist, the onus is on the white person to prove that he's not. So it's the same thing. If a woman calls you a rapist and says that you allegedly assaulted her, it is now for you to prove and say, oh no, I had consent. Probably the most important case. This is an average Joe. We've left XQC, we've looked at Harvey Weinstein, now this is an average Joe. A man wrongly jailed for rape after cops missed vital Facebook evidence has been refused compensation. This is in the UK. A man called Danny K spent 2 years in prison over the sex attack. Now, again, please note the language. There are many different ways the media describes one thing. Sex attack, sex assault, sex battery, sex harassment, domestic violence, etc. All right, continuing. Only released when his family managed to find deleted social media messages that proved his innocence. Remember, in regular common law, the onus is on the person accusing you to bring proof. But you can see his innocence has to be proved. Meanwhile, regularly, in its normal, sensible society, it is guilt that has to be proved, not innocence. Let's go down. Remember the headline: no justice. Innocent man wrongly jailed for 2 years for rape after court missed vital Facebook evidence is refused compensation. Let's go down. So he was falsely accused of rape and jailed, spent 2 years. That's him with his sister-in-law. But 2 years on, it has now emerged that the Ministry of Justice has turned down the 28-year-old welder. So this guy is a blue-collar, regular Joe, claimed for more than 500,000 worth of compensation. In a letter, officials said, we regret to inform you that the Secretary of State has concluded that the conviction was not reversed as a result of newly discovered fact that shows beyond reasonable doubt that he did not commit the offense. The whole thing nearly ruined my life. If the evidence was was good enough to overturn my conviction, why isn't it good enough for me to be rewarded with compensation? Okay. So this is Adam Johnson. We talked about him in the last video, and I always have to talk about him because I will forever defend this man. I don't believe this man did anything wrong. And by the end of this video, you will understand why. But let's look at the timeline, right? Again, you have to be careful with the way these words are being framed. 2014, Adam Johnson and the woman start exchanging messages online. She tells him she has only just turned 15. In the following year, he meets the girl and signs 2 football shirts for her, meaning that she says, oh, I'm a fan, the girl, for a second time, and she alleges that, quote unquote, more serious sexual activity took place. Now, my question is, he didn't drag you from your house. He didn't go into your house, you're sleeping in your bed, preparing for your GCSEs, you're, minding your own business, and then this brute of a man comes in, breaks into your house, and drags you into his comfortable Range Rover and rapes you. That's not what happened. You found your way there. He plays his final game for Sunderland, throws the shirt into the crowd. It's very sad that his career was destroyed by some fucking tart. But just think about it. When you're thinking of sexual assault, whenever someone mentions that I was assaulted or something like this, you're not or raped, you're not thinking about a girl meeting up with a guy after messaging on social media. You're thinking about a girl walking down the street and then she's attacked by a random person. Because that's what it really is. How do you know where my car is? Now, with Adam Johnson, you have the issue of age, right? We saw that with age, the girl is supposed to be young, 15-year-old girl, right? So in the UK, the age of consent is 16. So therefore, when you're in court and you say to the court, well, my lord, I had consent from the woman, the court is going to ask, how old is she? If she says she's 16, it means that yes, there's consent. But again, we saw earlier that you can withdraw consent at any point, right? So if she's 16, she can still say, no, I withdrew the consent, I no longer consent, a la XQC. XQC, it's the same thing. So the fact that she's of age to consent doesn't mean that she can't withdraw the consent, right? So when it comes to the court, it doesn't matter. It's not that a 15-year-old girl can't consent. She can in real life. But in court, her consent doesn't matter. That is what statutory rape is. So it says, in common law jurisdictions, statutory rape is non-forcible, meaning that you did not use force. Meaning that if you don't use force, it means that the sex is consensual. But you can see how they legalize the term. Statutory rape is non-forcible sexual activity in which one of the individuals is below the age of consent. That is, the age required to legally consent to the behavior. Now, legally consent. Legally, this is the key word here. Legally. How does one legally consent? How does one legally consent when consent can be given and withdrawn at any point? Here, there is no question, there's no qualification of age when you're defining the word here. This is the definition right here, what it is, but this is the context in which consent is used. Our girl here clearly met up with him, knew how to find the car, knew how to get into his car, knew how to take the bus, leave her house, leave her studies to go and meet with him, right? And we have information that she was one who bragged to her friends that she was snogging a footballer. iPhone's new app Snapchat, which destroys photos after a few seconds, is promoting sexting among teens. This is 2012. So, 12 years ago, 6-year-olds were doing this. Watch. A new iPhone photo app allows people to send a photo which self-destructs and could be used to promote sexting behavior among teenagers. What's a teenager? Teenager is anyone from 11 to 25 if you're a woman. But let's continue. Snapchat images are time-specific, perfect for users who don't experience to handle to embarrassing evidence indefinitely. CEO Evan Spiegel, check him out, has acknowledged the concerns and blah, 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 right? So, the website for the now controversial app features 2 young, pretty girls, downloadable for users over the age of 12. Mild sexual content or nudity. 12 years, mild sexual content or nudity. Right. 12 years, teens. I wasn't joking. A teenager is anyone from the age of 11 to 25. If you're a woman. If you're black, it's 8 to 33. Shout out to Alan the barbershop guy or Jack Barber, let's say. All this has led to discussions about the app's potential use for sexting among teenagers. We'll cover this a little bit more. However, Stanford graduate seems to have only grasped the lengths to which teens will go for their sexual kicks, which they increasingly do through smartphones. So, teenagers, right? Teenagers, where's the teenager here? Are sexting with Snapchat. Teenagers are sexting with Snapchat. Where's the consent? Sexting is sexual activity, is it not? So they're still crying about it, I guess. This is 2012 when the app came out. But we'll continue. We're looking at the case where the shoe is on the other foot, where a woman, predatory woman, posing as a 16-year-old boy and grooming and assaulting up to 50 young girls. Nobody has called her a rapist. Nobody has called her a disgraced somebody. But every single time they say all sorts of things about Adam Johnson, they call him a disgrace, this, a shamed that. I mean, it's insane. Disgrace this, shamed that. But then this woman who grooms 50 young girls, no qualification is given to her name. Why? Because she is a woman. Bathed with one of them, passing off as Mambo as fat, and jailed for 8 years. 50 young girls. She's 21. She groomed 50 young girls. We don't know what young girls means. And she only gets 8 years. Adam Johnson got 6 years for one girl. This woman gets 8 years for 50 girls. Bathed with them. So, Gemma Watts posed as a teenage boy to sexually assault up to 50 girls. She traveled the country to meet these girls, and she obtained sex by deception, which is very strange. Swapped messages with the victims on social media, jailed for 8 years. All right. What else? Disguised with her long hair into a bun, wearing a baseball cap, baggy jogging bottoms, a hoodie. So she convinced them her name is Jake, and then she was a footballer. Oh my God. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? She was a footballer, but none of this. Nobody calls her a disgraced footballer. Nobody calls her a shamed footballer. She is just what? We just describe her by her name. Isn't that funny? So, she pleaded guilty. This is a guilty plea, 8 years. 4 girls, a 14-year-old girl, a 14-year-old girl from Surrey, a 13-year-old girl from Plymouth, and a 16-year-old girl from the West Midlands. Adam Johnson's girl was 15. These girls are less than 15, and there are multiple, and she only gets 8 years. I want you guys to see what is happening. Consent is a myth. Consent is a myth. These women, these young girls, they cannot say that this woman, Gemma Watts, raped them. They can't say that because they are also willing participants. They are willing participants. That's the truth. But the law is very paternalistic, and it's always trying to excuse female behavior. And that's why you have a woman assaulting 50 women and she only gets 8 years, but a guy kisses one 15-year-old girl and gets 6 years. Where is the consistency? The consistency doesn't exist because consent doesn't exist. It is purely a legal fiction. It's a method. It's a fugazi, let's call it. So watch. Gemma Watts pretends to be a boy and has sex with 50 girls. That's what happened, right? So this girl here, 14-year-old girl from Hampshire, 14-year-old girl from Surrey, 13-year-old girl from Plymouth, they had sex with the boy. If you're a good, normal Christian, Bible-believing person, it means that you will never get sexually assaulted. Why should you be having sex with somebody? Nobody ever thinks about that aspect of it, because the normal expectation of sex, or shall I say sexual assault or rape, is where someone drives you off the street and has sex with you without your knowledge, without your consent, without all your agreement, just everything against your will. The person holds you down and has sex with you. But these are people with whom she's building a relationship. Look, she was so convincing that she spent time as Jake with some of the girl's parents. Even the police at one point believed that she was a boy, meaning that this woman is not sexually assaulting anyone. She hasn't sexually assaulted anyone. She's building a relationship with these young girls and having sex with them accordingly. And they're agreeing to it. The only issue is that there's some sort of deception as to the identity of the person with whom the girls are in a relationship with. Why should a 13-year-old girl be in a relationship with a 16-year-old boy? Why? What are you doing in a relationship? Why are you having a relationship? Since when did it become normal for a 13-year-old to be so comfortable with the boy that she's spending time with the parents? And you see it on television. You see PDD is like, oh, my daughter is dating boys. He was on with Ellen. I was like, oh, my daughter is dating boys. I'm angry. It's like, what? Here's the kicker. All 50 of What's victims believed that they were in a relationship with a teenage boy until the police informed them that she was in fact a woman. So what are we saying? They are all in a relationship. They are in a relationship. It's not sexual assault. How can it be sexual assault when you're in a relationship? Because consent can be withdrawn. They withdrew consent once they learned that the boy was in fact a girl. They withdrew consent. How can you give consent and you have a taxi backsies? Because you never gave it in the first place. You cannot give what you don't have. If you've given consent, it means you don't have it anymore. It's in someone else's hands. It's not a loan, and I'll explain to you how that comes in, because there is a case, a very important case. It's an irrevocable deed of gift. So, how can these two things be true at the same time? I've met the girl. I buy her dinner. I invite her back to my place. We all know why you're coming back to my place, Rafamir. We all know why you're coming back to my place. And then you turn around and you say, no more consent. Even with the consent form. So, the age made it more likely that they will be sexually naive. Sexually naive. What? One of them is 16. And why are they sexually anything? That's the point. Why are they sexually anything? I don't get it. This is a Nigerian story. Title: She don't chop on Mugu. This means, she has scammed him, basically. It's like a scam. Mugu, Maga, it's the same thing. She don't chop on Mugu. So this is what happens. Man in tears as lady refuses to sleep with him after taking her to the Maldives. This is a man takes a woman. Let's just get into the story. A man takes a woman. So a Nigerian lady has shared her experience with a young man who begged her to go on a trip to the Maldives. According to the lady, the young man never informed her of his intentions to make them sleep in the same room. Now, a man has gathered his money and he says to her, come on this trip with me. No man on this planet is going to say to a woman, come on this trip with me, I'm going to have sex with you. Right? Because a woman would take that as, you're being rude, do you think I'm a prostitute? Right? So men have to use subtle messages to get their requests for consent across. Because consent generally is an approval of what is done. This is actually what consent is. It's an approval of what is done. It's not an active activity. Usually, it's a passive activity. Yeah, she gets a free holiday. After finding out that he didn't book a separate room for her, she booked the next available flight to return home. So she says, she had never been better with any man. I had no other choice than to leave him heartbroken. Said, some men can be so unreasonable. This guy begged me to go on a vacation with him to the Maldives because he doesn't have anyone to go with. Though all expenses was on you, getting there, I discovered that we'll be staying in the same hotel room. Obviously, he can't pay for 2 different rooms. Are you retarded? This is women. Women operate on plausible deniability and deception. Can she say that she's so naive that she doesn't know that if you're booking a trip with somebody, you stay in the same room? I had to book the next available flight to return home. He asked me to keep him company, not to be sleeping together. I can't give up my virginity because of a common vacation. My future husband deserves better. So, what then is consent? You agree to go on a vacation with a man. He sees that as an acceptance. If a man asks you, can you come home with me? And you say yes, that is consent. But women want to play these games I just came to your house at 2 a.m. in the morning to sit down and look at your face. They like to play these games. It's a shit test. It's annoying. Shout out to Coach for that term shit test. I now fully understand it. But this is what women do. They do it to play with you. They do it to destroy you. Women are your enemy. The court is their accomplice. Consent is their weapon. We saw a story today of some boys who stole $243 million worth of Bitcoin. The first thing they did was to buy 10 cars. The next thing they did was to go to the club, buy Birkins, and give them out to girls. All right, so shout out to Coach. Fair use, Coach. Fair use.
Deal at once. All right, let's play the video.
3 young men stole $243 million in Bitcoin from a single person last month. Here is the moment that they secured $243 million. Having purchased 10 plus cars, going out to clubs in LA and Miami, spending $570,000 one night on bottle service, giving out Birkin bags to girls.
And he was like, my friend knows who you are, he's a fan of you, and he wants to gift you a Birkin.
He bought one of them a Lamborghini. We'll call it an early birthday gift.
It's consent. That's what he's buying. The reason why you go out and you give girls Birkin bags is so that they will have sex with you. That is consent. Now, it turns out that the girl he bought that Lamborghini didn't sleep with him. Can he sue for fraud? Can he say, well, I paid, right? I paid for it. I mean, what is the reason for you? What other reason? What other reason does a man have to buy a woman a Lamborghini? What other reason? There is no other reason. And the girl knows it. And she still cheats him out of the sex. So, what then is consent? If there is no obligation on the woman's part to perform her own end of the bargain, because she can, remember, she can withdraw consent at any time, guys. It's not real. It's a game. Can he collect the Lamborghini back? No. I'll explain. But she can withdraw her consent at any time. So you got. That's the point. So, next story. So, we talked about, let's see, 15. Oh, we'll send Adam Johnson, England legend, Premier League star, Man City lad. We'll send him to prison because he allegedly kissed a 15-year-old girl who bragged about it and actually looked 25 at the time. But then, you have children, not teenagers, children as young as 7 are being investigated for sexting in schools. What is sexting? Let's find out. Let's be sure. Sexting. Sexting is sending, receiving, or forwarding sexually explicit messages, photographs, videos, primarily between mobile phones. It also includes the use of a computer. Right? So, children as young as 7 years old are being investigated for sexting in schools as teachers learn to combat quote-unquote dangerous activity. 7 years old. Adam Johnson, remember, went to prison for a 15-year-old girl. But 7-year-old girls are sending you sex messages. Let's go. 1,581 people in Nottinghamshire received unwanted sexual messages. Nottinghamshire police also classed 64 sex attacks in schools since 2011. Blah, blah, blah. So, sexting is a major issue in probably all our secondary schools, and it's creeping into primary schools. Secondary schools are younger than 18. We've had issues in primary schools. The youngest child involved, to my knowledge, was 7. If a child as young as 7 is doing it, we cannot afford to qualify it as a rare occurrence. I'm sorry, it is actually a national catastrophe. Children as young as 7 years old are sexting. So who is doing the grooming when your groomer is 7 years old? Maybe not me, but maybe somebody could get groomed by a 7-year-old. That's what sexting is. He got done for grooming, for sexting a 15-year-old. He got done for that. This man did nothing wrong. Free him, quash his conviction. Children as young as 7 are grooming. This is a story about a school in Nigeria. I mean, it's a little bit terrible because the girl is, I believe, 14 years old, but she released a sex tape wherein she's having sex with other young boys. It's really bad. It's so difficult to talk about, but the story came out as an incident, a sexual incident, and the boys were facing trouble. About 5 boys were implicated in the story. 5 of the boys were facing, potential expulsion and charges. Then the video came out. The video came out of this girl having sex. So if the video did not exist, those boys' lives would have been ruined because they would have run with the narrative that she was quote unquote raped. And what does that? What does raped mean? It means that she didn't have consent. But then from the video, there was consent. The whole country saw it. Nobody can say they didn't see it. The police investigators saw it. So whatever, right? The girl was a professional. She knew what she was doing. She controlled the room. The room had about 5 boys, and she was working on one while the other boys were waiting. So the girl was in control of the entire situation. All the boys were at her beck and call. So, I mean, it was such a nothing burger after the video came out, but it's the video that saved those boys' lives. Here we go. We said 7 the other time. Girls aged 6 are sending sex in lockdown. This was during COVID. Number of sexually explicit texts sent by children has risen almost 200% during the cold. Right? Typed up by children has risen in the UK by 183% during lockdown. Increase in number of explicit messages, 55% rise in sexting during normal school hours. 11-year-old girls and 13-year-old boys were in the groups who sent the most sex. Girls as young as 6 are sending sexually explicit texts. Disturbing figure emerged as parents offered 1 million free downloads of a phone safety app via the government website. Children as young as 6. So here we go. 11-year-old girls and 3-year-old boys attempted to say the highest proportion of sex and messages referred as cyberbullying, but the app also screened messages from being sent to girls as young as 6 and boys aged 9. Understand that this doesn't apply to men. Why doesn't it apply to men? I'll give you an example. Court. A man can sue for distress over surprise pregnancy, but the sperm is hers to keep. This is what happened. An appeals court said a man can press a claim for emotional distress after learning that a former lover of his had used his sperm to have a baby, but he cannot claim theft because the sperm were hers to keep. The ruling Wednesday by the Illinois Appellate Court sends Dr. Richard Phillips' distress case back to the trial court. Phillips accuses Dr. Sharon Irons, I remember this case very well, of a calculated and profound personal betrayal after their affair 6 years ago, saying she secretly kept semen after they had oral sex and then used it to get pregnant. So this is what happened. Dr. Phillips had an affair with Dr. Irons. These are 2 doctors, and it was just oral sex, and it says something about doctors because they do have sex with each other a lot. And this time he deposited his what we call it, his seed in her mouth, but she kept the seed and then turned around and used it to impregnate herself. After she impregnated herself, she gave birth and then filed a paternity lawsuit, and the DNA test confirmed that Phillips was the father of a child that he did not put in her vagina with his penis. He used the semen from her mouth to conceive the child. So he was ordered to pay $800 a month in child support. Of course, this would include back support as in arrears, child support. So he sued, claiming that he had trouble sleeping and eating and is haunted by feelings of being trapped in a nightmare. This woman went and brought a child into the world that he did not consent to. Where's his consent? Where's his consent? I did not consent to this. A profound personal betrayal. Consent to oral sex is not consent to pregnancy. Just watch. I need you guys to watch this. Alice responded that her actions weren't truly extreme and outrageous and that Philip's pain wasn't bad enough to merit a lawsuit. The circuit court agreed and dismissed Philip's lawsuit in 2003. The court agreed with this woman. I want you guys to please watch this. But the higher court ruled that if Philip's story is true, Irons deceitfully engaged in sexual acts which no reasonable person would expect could result in pregnancy. Okay. To use the plaintiff's sperm in an unorthodox, unanticipated manner, yielding extreme consequences. Now, this has to be appealed. A simple matter of consent. Notice that the word consent has not come up. It hasn't come up, even though we're talking about it, even though that's what we're doing here. I deposited my semen in someone's mouth. She turns around and uses it to have a baby without my consent and claims that I am the father of the baby, which I did not consent to bring it into this world. She did it entirely of her own volition in secret. That's why Drake puts hot sauce in his condoms. The judges back the lower court is going to dismiss the fraud and theft, for God's sake. Agreeing that Irons didn't steal the sperm. Watch this. This is the most important thing you're going to hear in your life as a man. This is the most important thing about consent. She asserts that when the plaintiff delivered his sperm, it was a gift, an absolute and irrevocable transfer of title to property from a donor to a donee. There was no agreement that the original deposit will be returned upon request. Did you guys hear that? I'll read it again. She asserts that when the plaintiff delivered his sperm, it was a gift, an absolute and irrevocable transfer of title to property from a donor to a donee. There was no agreement that the original deposit will be returned upon request. I want you to think about this the next time you're having sex with somebody. The woman has agreed with you to give you access to her vagina. Did she agree with you that you will return it to her? Did she agree with you? Just think about it in these terms, because a man's semen is part of his body. It's his DNA, entirely his DNA. But that woman used it to turn it into a baby and use it for her own profit. Now, they're talking about a donor to a donee, irrevocable transfer of title to property. How do you transfer title to property without a document that someone signs? It is not possible. You may have an agreement, you may have a contract, but a contract is not sufficient to transfer title. A contract is simply an agreement. That's why a contract can be oral. You can have an oral contract, a verbal agreement, of course. You can have a verbal agreement. But where was the agreement here? There was no agreement on this. But the court said, no, it's not only is it an agreement, there is, and the court is imputing an irrevocable transfer of title from a donor to a donee. A donor is someone who gives, a donee is someone who receives. So it is very important for you guys to look at this case, Phillips against Irons, the most important case on consent you will ever find. Drake must have heard about the story, and he starts to put condoms or hot sauce in his condoms. I think Adrian Ross, same thing. Ridiculous story about Drake putting hot sauce in the condom inspires wild responses. The Instagram model ready to sue Drake allegedly putting hot sauce in his condom. That is to avoid this. That is to avoid what happened here, because the woman kept the semen after they had oral sex and used it to get pregnant. So Drake uses the hot sauce to invalidate the sperm, but the story is that the woman, he caught the woman stuffing the contents of the condom, of the used condom, into her vagina, and then she suffered burns. Meet Drake, the first goddamn motherfucker to put hot sauce in the condom to prevent a slave queen from stealing his sperm. I stand a G. Stealing. The normal person sees this as stealing because there is no consent. But the court said that no, it is a gift. So when a woman steals something from you, it is a gift that you gave her. When you take it from her, it's rape. It is no consent because she can withdraw at any point. Whereas XQC, his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, can withdraw at any time. That's the point, right? So please, guys, understand this. I'll give 2 more examples. Where's Young Philly? Young Philly is, it's so painful seeing this young man working so hard only to have his life destroyed by some fucking Australian pikey tart with whom he has sex regularly. But remember, she can withdraw at any point. That is what happened in this case. She is a regular hoe of his that he goes to see when he's in Australia. And then they have sex, they choke each other, normal, they choke and have sex, and that's it. And then she comes out, and what does she do? She withdraws consent and says, oh no, all the sex we've been having, everything that he's been paying for, it wasn't consensual because, as I said, she can withdraw at any point. The main problem with the Philly case is none of his friends, I have not seen one, that came out and said, free Young Philly, this man's done nothing wrong. You know what I mean? And they know that they can't do it because it's going to affect their money. His show has been cancelled, he's lost money, he's lost opportunities, he's lost endorsements. And it's so painful, it's so radicalizing. This story is so personal to me because, speaking of age of consent, I'll insert the video. Young Philly, he has a video where he is going around the streets of England and he's interviewing young girls, and he says, how old are you? The girl says, oh, I'm 18, but I've been 18 for 3 years.
Bear gentlemen out there are wondering how old are you?
I'm 18, but I've been 18 since I was like 15.
See what I'm saying, man? You see what I'm saying? This is why I don't chat to no one that don't have glasses on now. Because glasses means you're over 25. If you wear reading glasses
on if you want me to.
well, look, I don't chat to no one that don't have house keys then.
I have house keys as well.
Well, no, I don't.
She says to him, I've been 18 since I was 15, meaning that even from the age of 15, I've been telling men who ask me that I'm 18. At any particular point in time, if she sees somebody like him, somebody who is rich like him, she can withdraw her consent and say, oh, I was 15, I lied to him that I was 18, and I gave consent, but I withdrew it. But the man gave money, he paid. There's no way Philly doesn't pay these girls, because the girl in question is exposed to be a sex worker. Free Young Philly story is really so painful to me. It's really the silence from his friends. I'll call their names. The whole of Beta Squad, Harry Pinero, Chunks, whatever his real name is, the whole of the Sidemen, the whole of the Beta Squad, they said nothing. I was waiting for days and days, and they all said nothing. Even those boys on the football, what's their name, Girth and Turf, they said nothing. Just, oh, we'll wait and see. You cannot come out in support of this boy and tell him and give him moral support. You can't publicly. You can't do that publicly. It is the most radicalizing incident of this year. I wish you all the best, Young Philly. I pray that you come out of this stronger, and I just hope the best for you. I hope you are found innocent as you are. Consent is fickle. It is what's the word? It is fluid. It's fluid. It's liquid one day and look, consent is fluid. It's liquid one day and gas the next. You have it in your hand and then it vaporizes like a spirit. So I wish him all the best. I pray he comes out of it alive, because these things can kill you. They can. I hope that everyone can see what I'm trying to say. We saw on one side, the man did not consent to having a child, but she is able to successfully steal his sperm without his knowledge or his consent, have a child. Oh, speaking of consent, let me show you another case. This is very important. Hermsman versus Sire. It's a precedent-setting Kansas case wherein Colleen Hermsman successfully argued that a woman is entitled to sue the father for child support even if the conception occurred as a result of a criminal act. It set a precedent. Now, in law, we have a term called extorpi causa oritor non actio. Okay, extorpi causa non oritor actio. This means that you cannot benefit from a bad act, right? An action does not arise from a dishonorable cause. You cannot do something bad and expect to get some kind of legal redress from it. So I can't, if you sell me a bad narcotic, I can't sue you in court for selling me a bad narcotic because what I'm doing is horrible. Dealing in narcotics is illegal, so I can't take you to court for that. So that's how that works. So this is what happens. She was 16 in Kansas. Let's check the age of consent in Kansas. 16, right? So she is 16 and she has a sexual relationship with a 12-year-old boy called Shane. When she was 17, she became pregnant and their daughter was born in 89. Criminal charges brought against Harmsman in Shawnee County accused her of engaging in sexual intercourse with a child under 16, right? Because the age of consent in Kansas is 16, right? Okay. Now, she was stipulated as a juvenile offender, contributing to a child's misconduct, which is not a social offense. Oh my God. Oh my God, this is so crazy. So, through the Kansas Department of Social and Rehabilitation Services, she sued Saya, seeking for child support for the child they gave birth to. Her criminal culpability was not addressed in his trial. Why? He did not consent, right? Because he is under the age of consent. The age of consent is 16. The boy is 13. Did he consent? No. Her criminal culpability was not addressed. As this was a purely civil court case, right? Purely civil. Oh my God, it's purely civil. All the case against Cassie's case against Diddy is purely civil. So this is some fucking bullshit because consent, rape, etc., statutory right in federal court for survivors of sexual assault and rape. You can sue. Kansas Supreme Court rejected an appeal that he was not liable to pay child support. The court held that the admitted facts established that because being under 16, he had been legally unable to consent to sex, a crime against him had committed under statutory rape law, but Sarah had actually given consent to the act under civil law. I've been a lawyer for a very long time. Maybe I'm not American, but this has no meaning. This sentence has no meaning. Maybe I need to read the case in context, but this summary of it has no meaning. And for our purposes, this is not a legal show, but I want us to read it again. The court held that the admitted facts established that because being under 16, he had been legally unable to consent, right, to sex, a crime against him had been committed under statutory rape law, but that Sarah had actually given consent to the acts under civil law. That means absolutely nothing. How can the same inaction, how can consent vary from criminal to civil? Where is that distinction drawn? The court also ruled that at no time did Shane register any complaint to his parents about the sexual liaison with Colleen. Guys, consent is a myth. It's a legal fiction. It is a biological weapon. It's a legal biological weapon fashioned against men to destroy us. I want you to understand this. It is so bad that legal principles like extorpi causa non oritur actio are being ignored. The Supreme Court said, no, he consented civilly. How can you consent civilly when you didn't consent criminally? How? A minor. The boy is a minor that still has to pay child support. I mean, what other proof do you need than that? Consent is fluid. If it's fluid, that means it's not real because what is in your hand, like premium motor spirit, gasoline, once you hold it in your hand, it's liquid, right? But then, because it's fluid, it can become a gas and it's gone and you have nothing. And then you're in prison. And then you're in prison because it can be withdrawn at any point. Your liquid, premium motor spirit can become a gas and you have nothing. And now, so I hope that you guys see it. We have children sexting. Children are participating in sexual activity. News 19, WHNT. Underage sex workers rescued from bogus health spa. So this is on Twitter, August 2nd, 2024. Very important story. Now, community notes comes in and they say, this post refers to underage sex workers when there is no such thing. They are victims of sex trafficking and rape. They are children. Now, you see how the world has been shaped around. The world has been shaped and people are so emotional, they cannot reason, right? We'll go into the story a little bit, but I want to talk about the reaction to the story. Because the reaction to the story influences how we can see how judges look at stories, we can see how judges choose to interpret the law. The laws, jurisprudence teaches us that the interpretation of law doesn't just come from the words themselves, but also our reactions and our prejudices going into the interpretation of the law. This sentence here, they are victims of sex trafficking and rape. This cannot be determined outside a courtroom. They cannot be determined outside a courtroom. These are legal conclusions. You cannot even put legal conclusions in an affidavit. There is such a thing as underage sex workers. If someone is working in the sex industry underage, they are an underage sex worker. That's facts. And people are struggling to distinguish, because of their emotions, they're struggling to distinguish between facts and law. This is fact, underage sex worker. This is law, but they've not been tried yet. We've not gotten to court yet. Do you understand? So the idea that a person who has not yet attained the age of consent is a victim of rape is insane. It's not a fact. What's my proof? Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey is my proof. Josh Giddey is known for underage, right? Underage. So let's see. So this is what happened. He had an inappropriate relationship with a minor. It's still an allegation. How old was the girl? Let's just skim through it. We all know the Josh Giddey story. What was the age of the girl? Oklahoma City Thunder guard Josh Giddey for having an inappropriate relationship with a minor. That's rape, according to community notes. Why is a rapist still playing basketball? Because it never went to court. Because she consented. Because she has not yet withdrawn her consent. So when she withdraws, consent only comes up in court. Outside of court, your Tiana Trump, she was 16 and she consented to being on film recorded having sex with a basketball player. Nobody cries about the basketball player she was having sex with, but everybody was crying about Josh Giddey because Josh Giddey is white and he didn't go to court. Because the girl said, I'm not going to snitch on this man. I'm not going to withdraw my consent. She refused to withdraw her consent. So that is what happens. So as I said, consent only happens in the courtroom, or the issue of consent is only in the courtroom. It's a purely legal doctrine. It's not factual. Because in that moment, Josh Giddey isn't like, hello, minor. May I have sex with you, minor? And she's like, oh, yes, major. Yes, man who has attained the age of majority. You may have sex with me, sir. That is consent. That doesn't happen. Nobody has that conversation because in the natural sexual environment of normal people, sex between men and women, because that's the only type of sex there is, you don't have that conversation because the man knows what he's doing and what to do. The woman knows what she's doing and what to do. And it's natural. You don't need to speak. Consent means that you have to ask the question and receive an answer. So this is me. This is me on Twitter. Follow me. I get quite wild on here. But yeah. So these are some of the stories we're talking about, right? Girls age 6 are sending sex. So if a girl age 6 is sending sex, then what is the age of consent? Right? Okay. So here we go. Ofcom launches probe into OnlyFans over children's access to pornography. Girls as young as 13 are able to share explicit content watched by millions. 13-year-old girls are on OnlyFans. And the website says, no, you must be 18, but a 13-year-old girl joins. So what are we saying? Here we go. So that's me on Twitter, and everyone is, really going crazy. And then it says slavery is not employment. You are getting paid. Slavery is employment. Oh wow! Can you imagine? I even said that. So let's just go through my Twitter, right? So it says employer employee. It used to be master slave. The word employee. Shout out to Coach. This is Coach Greg Adams all day. Okay. The word employ hasn't been used for more than 300 years, and its current meaning and connotation. Employees are literally slaves, servants. Employers are literally masters lords. We changed it to make you feel better. That's funny. You keep doubling down stupid and no one is impressed. Whatever. You are being emotional. I'm showing you what is happening in the world. You're living in an idealistic fantasy. Young adults make decisions all the time. There are no toddlers here. A 14-year-old girl is not a child. At that age, we sold newspapers to make money. Today, girls sell feet pictures. Watch this. Sixth graders selling feet pictures to strangers online. A sixth grader, guys, is 12 years old. A sixth grader is 12 years old. She's selling pictures of her feet. Feet are a known fetish. They're the most common fetish outside the norm. This is a woman writing, telling the whole world that her daughter is selling feet pictures. 12 years old girls are selling feet pics. 13-year-old girls are joining OnlyFans. What is sex work? You spell child rape? No. You guys are babies. They are victims and volunteers. These girls are sex workers. Sex workers start very young, before the age of majority. Now, anybody who watches a show like Software Underbelly, all the girls on Software Underbelly, all of them started on their age. Most of them. These prostitutes, they're all underage, sex workers, whatever you want to call them. They're underage most of the time. Most of the time, they're underage when they start. 11, 9. There was one who said she was 9 when she started. What are you going to do about that? Nothing, because you're a bitch. So I just keep having to say the same thing over and over and over and over again. But 13-year-old girls are sex workers because OnlyFans is sex work. Consent only works one way. Consent only works in court because Judge Giddy is around. He didn't rape anyone because the girl didn't come forward. Same thing with Mason Greenwood. Mason Greenwood is being treated as a pariah of sorts, but what did he do? What was his case? His fucking stupid girlfriend, his dirty girlfriend, comes out and says, "Oh, you have to ask for consent." Like she proposed to release a tape wherein she's recording him. And guys, women will record you and get you to say stupid shit. So you have to work with a little bit of abundance in your mindset, which I talked about it on a different show. But she's recording him and she's like, "You have to ask for consent." And I'm like, I wear number 11 for Manchester United. I keep Ronaldo on the bench, or I refuse to pass to him. I am a starting player for Manchester United. I am not going to ask a woman for sex. That is insane. It's insane that a woman would think that a man of his caliber will be asking and begging you for sex. But what happens? They go through with the case, or not all the way through. In the middle, she withdraws the case. Charges dropped. Crown Prosecution Service said the charges were discontinued after key witnesses withdrew their involvement. That's the girl herself, of course. And new material came to light. That it was a bunch of bullshit, but the boy gets his dignity back. Yeah, was it donated his dignity and his reputation back, right? After the consent was withdrawn or whatever, after the charges were dropped. Did he get his consent back? No. Because it only exists in court. But it leaves a stain upon you forever. That boy's life has changed forever. Even though the woman has withdrawn the consent and she's like, "No, I can't do any better than Mason Greenwood." They chased this boy out of United, been at the club from the age of 7, and the word of some tart has completely derailed his career. Although he's doing well, but I mean, to wear the number 11 for Manchester United, and some tart comes out and says, "Oh, he didn't ask me for consent to have sex with me." And we all know what consent is. As I said, as we've proved, it's a weapon. The woman, in this case of Josh Giddy, is the one she's the one keeping him out of prison, guys. The woman in this case is the one keeping him out of prison. She is the one who posted on Snapchat, "Just fucked Josh Giddy." And she is the one who decided, "No, I'm not going to put this man in prison." The power is entirely in her hands. It's not in the law. It's not in the truth. It's in her hands. So, thank you so much, guys. Please leave a like, subscribe. I hope this proves it. Any questions, any comments, I'll give you more links. I'll give you more stories. This has been something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I believe that we've covered it. I believe that we've done it, and I think that it's sufficient to show you that consent is a hoax. We have too many examples. We can go all day. We can go all day, honestly. We can go all day. So thank you guys so much. Free Young Philly, free XQC, free Mason Greenwood, free Josh Giddy. Our men are just being destroyed right in front of our very eyes. Free Adam Johnson. Adam Johnson, please. I've been begging for the past 3 years. I need you to come on my show. Let's sit down together. Let's play FIFA together. I want us to collab. I need you on my show. You're my favorite player from City back in the day. I need to collab with you. Hit me up somehow. This is my call out to you. And as someone who respects you and what you've done for the sport, what you did for the club. So, on that bombshell, guys, thank you so much. I'll see you guys in the next one.
After centuries of sleep, of nothingness, I have returned. Something comes back to me. I was great once. Feared. Yes. Once I was strong. Powerful beyond measure, beyond imagining. So weak now, must find blood.
The best guy at synthesizing this stuff, because he's just been hitting these things out of the park.